Deion Sanders has been known to take the occasional risk or two during his time in Colorado, but for the first time, he may be playing it safe.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Bohr, but today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for making us your first listen. Today's episode, we're talking about Coach Prime playing it safe. It's not really something that we associate with him because he's constantly taking risks, doing this, doing that. Obviously, he rebuilt his whole roster through the transfer portal, and that's obviously not something that we've seen before, and it may not be something we see again. I think we'll see a lot of teams look to the transfer portal for some help, but I don't know if we'll ever see another 50-plus person class in the portal. I think for all intents and purposes, it's safe to say it worked out for wide receivers, quarterback, defensive backs to an extent. It failed miserably in the trenches, and that's what was the difference between Colorado being a 4-8 team and them being an 8-4 team. They were horrible in the trenches. Their offensive line was, for lack of a better term, pathetic, I guess you could say. They led Deion Sanders was the most sacked quarterback in the country, ended up hurting him, and he fractured his back, and he just took too much of a beating. Obviously, we don't know if it was a sack that caused injury, but he took a big beating this year. And we just got to assume that Coach Prime realizes how important the trenches are now. We also have to realize he has to make an adjustment at offensive coordinator. During the middle of the season, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, opted to demote Sean Lewis, his highest paid assistant ever in Colorado program history, him and Charles Kelly, demoted him in favor of Pat Shurmur. So the demotion led to Lewis just signaling plays on the sidelines, Pat Shurmur calling the plays from the booth. Tim Brewster got demoted as well to make room for Shurmur, and obviously, he's lost both Shurmur and Lewis. Lewis is the head coach at San Diego State now, which is a really good job, to be honest. And Brewster is now the tight ends coach at Charlotte. So everybody it worked out for everybody. And so a lot of people were questioning, where does Deion Sanders go next? What is his next move for offensive coordinator? Because obviously, I don't know if you guys realize this, Shurmur has played for 3, I think now 4, if you want to count Shurmur, coordinators during his college tenure. He's only been in college this will be his 4th year next year. He's played for a different offensive coordinator just about every year. And I think the hard part for him is obviously he's really good. He's gifted, great passer, smart decision maker, but constantly learning new offenses cannot be easy. Some continuity would be nice. And so when it comes to the offensive coordinator hire, all the Colorado fans were like, oh, it's got to be. And I swear, this is like Colorado dreams. And right now, it doesn't appear that they're going to get their dreams to come true. They were expecting Byron Leftwich. And instead, the belief, according to Deion Sanders right now, is that Pat Shurmur is most likely going to continue his role as Colorado's offensive coordinator. When he was doing an interview with the USA Today, he said, he was asked if Pat Shurmur would be the Buffalo's offensive coordinator next year, and he said, yeah, most likely. I think it's the safe choice. I think Deion Sanders kind of realized, I don't know if he has room for another risky hire. I wouldn't consider Sean Lewis a risky hire, but I would consider Sean Lewis a one and done. He reminded me of Zion Williamson. He reminded me of Anthony Davis. He reminded me of, you name a one and done player in college basketball, and that's what Sean Lewis was. Like I talked about yesterday on yesterday's episode, Deion Sanders always wanted Sean Lewis to leave. That was before things started going bad. Sean Lewis was in head coaching discussions by week 3 or 4. Probably 3, because obviously week 4 didn't go well against Oregon. But as soon as the Michigan State job opened up, everybody's like, oh, Sean Lewis, the dude's killing it at Colorado. And that was Deion Sanders' goal. He brought this guy in because, one, he knew he was a good head coach. He knew a lot about offense and how to put up points on the board. And Sean Lewis needed another opportunity to kind of get to a platform where Kent State just wasn't taking him. We'll just put it that way. Kent State, he had a lot of success there, and clearly he wasn't getting the job offers he wanted. And so he took the chance going to Colorado. But Coach Prime always had hopes that Sean Lewis would end up taking a head coaching job. Now, I think when things got a little rocky by the time he got demoted, the relationship kind of changed, and now he's probably like, yeah, I definitely don't want this guy here. But hey, nonetheless, everybody wins, right? Well, for Pat Shurmur, he is the safe choice to me because one, he has already worked with Shedeur. He has already worked within the system. I assume that he's going to integrate his offense more so now that he would be assuming he is the offense coordinator. Obviously, we're accounting that nobody changes anything. Like maybe Coach Prime all of a sudden gets an urge to go with someone else, but we're going to assume right now that Pat Shurmur is going to be the offense coordinator. He knows the system that these players know. He knows what works for them. He knows what doesn't. He knows where their weaknesses are. And I think realistically, he needs to kind of acclimate that to the team. Obviously, Colorado needs to improve across the offensive line. They need to improve the running game. But if I'm Deion Sanders and I'm Colorado fans, I'm happy that we get some continuity. I'm a little concerned about what we saw from Pat Shurmur. So when Sean Lewis was at the helm, Colorado was averaging around 40 points a game. When Pat Shurmur took over, they didn't surpass 35 points once. They scored 19 against Oregon State, 31 against Arizona, 14 against Washington State, who had, mind you, one of the worst defenses in the country, and obviously Shedeur got hurt that game. And then 17 against Utah, who was without pretty much everybody. And so I would assume this is why I think he's playing it safe. I think he's counting on bolstering the offense line, having a usable running attack, and having a more balanced offense. I think the high-powered, just throw it all over the yard offense, I think Coach Prime is well aware that isn't going to work. I think it worked to a certain extent. It worked enough to get them 4 wins. But that's not if they want to win the Big 12, they have to run the ball. Big 12 is, while I don't think it's the best conference by any means, like I don't think it's going to be the deepest conference. It's going to be a tough conference. They got some solid defenses, especially usually when it gets to that October, November weeks of the season, it gets cold. You're away. You kind of have to figure out things and figure out what's working and what's not. So like they have a pretty favorable schedule. They go at Arizona. There are only 3 away games next year in the Big 12 play, or 4 away games are Arizona, Kansas, Texas Tech, and UCF. So it's probably not going to be as cold as it would be in like Iowa State in October. But still, by that time of the season, you have to use the run game. The run game has to complement your offense, not hold it back. And with Sean Lewis, the run game was holding the offense back. Now, a lot of people want to point fingers and be like, this is Sean Lewis's fault. But I think it's everybody's fault. I think it's Deion Sanders' fault for not prioritizing the trenches well enough. I think it's Sean Lewis's fault for not realizing and kind of forcing adjustments. Even though you know it's not going to work, I think you have to try to make an adjustment some way, somehow. So that way your quarterback isn't out there getting slaughtered every play. As for Pat Shurmur, he really just needs to come in and have a more balanced offense. He needs to play to the strengths of what he has. He has a great quarterback and he has talented receivers. He has good running backs. If the offensive line could block it all, they should be able to run the ball. But I think by Deion Sanders sticking with Pat Shurmur, he wants continuity. He doesn't want to take a risk, and he wants someone that agrees with him. Obviously, we are well aware that him and Sean Lewis were butting heads in some way or another if he's demoting him. He wants someone that agrees with him, and Pat Shurmur is, by all expenses, that guy. He is going to do not whatever Deion Sanders wants, but he's going to play the way that Coach Prime wants his team to play, and he's going to know the strength of this offense and maybe enhance it. I don't know if they'll be as high scoring as they were this year when they were succeeding, but we'll have to wait and see. But I think Coach Prime is playing it safe, and I think that's a smart decision. I think with more time, Pat Shurmur can integrate his system, and maybe things could turn out a little more productive, a little more differently with guys healthy and better resources around him. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by Jace Medical. I know we come to talk about sports. I know we come to escape some of the crazy realities of life, but can we just talk about being prepared for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. This is scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if your significant other or my future kids or someone, my mom or dad got sick, while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medication they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illness, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinuses, skin infections, among others, and this stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com and prepare your physician encounter. And complete your physician encounter, It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to get prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Again, that's code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Okay, we are back, and we're talking about Travis Hunter. Locked on Buffs. It's your team every day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. We're here every day. Thank you for making us your first listen. Travis Hunter has been awarded the Paul Hornung Award. I don't know how to say last name. Hornung, I'm going to say. It is the award given to the most versatile player in college football. This comes a day after he was all Pac-12 on defense and an all-purpose player. So, Travis Hunter played well over 200 snaps on both sides of the ball. He was pretty much, he was the only player with 200 snaps on both sides of the ball. I was going to say, I know he played like 100 snaps a game. So, Travis Hunter is obviously making plays. He racked up 31 total tackles, 5 pass deflections, 3 picks, and then he also had 57 catches for 720 yards and 5 touchdowns, despite missing 3 games with a lacerated liver. He's kind of been, I think Deion Sanders is probably the face of Colorado football if you're a player, but Travis Hunter is by far the best player, maybe one of the best players in the country, top 4 player in the country. And it's someone that Coach Prime needs to build off of. Travis Hunter likely only has 1 more year in Colorado in college football. He himself has talked about going to the NFL. He said next year he wants to win championships, bowl games, whatever it may be, prior to and getting better before he goes to the NFL. So this is the last one with Travis Hunter. First of all, if you're a Colorado fan, appreciate it. It's not common to, 1, have a two-way player, but 2, have a two-way player who's as dominant as he is. He could literally shut down a team's best receiver and then go route the other team's best corner in the span of 2 minutes. Like, he's that good. He's someone who Deion Sanders can use as a recruiting tool in future years. You could be like, he could use him in the sense that, oh, you want to play both ways? Come on down. We're the perfect place to do that. Oh, you want to be a star on offense and defense? We had a guy by the name of Travis Hunter. He did it perfectly. He was the best player in college football, and you could do the same. Now, where I worry about Travis Hunter next year, I think he needs a pitch count. I really do. I think there were times when he looked tired on defense. On offense, I think he's fine most of the time. I think they either need to have him go off. Like, if he plays 1 drive of offense, he plays defense, then he sits that next drive of offense. Like, maybe have him play every other offensive drive, because I think while it's impressive to see what he accomplished, I think there were moments where he looked tired. I think there were moments where he just was doing a lot, and there's a lot asked of him. Excuse me, I'm trying to spit words out here. And I don't know if that's always the best way to use a player like that. I think if you're Deion Sanders, you have to use a guy like that. You want to use your best player the most you can, but I also think you have to be realistic. And Travis Hunter is obviously never going to say he wants to sit out, but Travis Hunter wanted to play after he lacerated his liver. So listening to the player isn't always the best thing. It shows he has heart, it shows he has care. He cares about the team. But I think at the end of the day, they need to figure out how to use him properly. And maybe that'll be something that Pat Shurmur and Coach Prime discuss, and Charles Kelly and Coach Prime discuss. But I imagine that Travis Hunter should be on some sort of pitch count. Just do every other drive, or if there's clutch drives. Like, if it's the 4th quarter and you're down a touchdown and, he played the last offensive drive. If you want him out there and he's ready, get him out there by all means. I'm not saying it has to be like a concrete, okay, you can only play this many drives, but I think they should try to keep him healthy and fresh the most they can, the best they can. So that way he could continue to dominate as a two-way player. Because Colorado has one of the best tools in college football. They basically have an All-American at 2 positions, and it's one guy. And that's not really something that we see in college football these days anymore. That's from like the back in the Jim Thorpe or you name it, back in those days where everybody was playing quarterback and then they'd go play safety and stuff like that. It's not really like a commonality anymore. But hey, Travis Hunter, congrats on the award. Colorado fans, appreciate while you have him, and hopefully he takes it to another level next year. I would love to see what the next level Travis Hunter is, because I wasn't even ready for this level of Travis Hunter. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options that include spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Welcome back. We are talking about all things Colorado. They had some departures, and I'm going to run through the list. It's like a running list at this point, so I'm just going to keep you guys posted. Let me pull up my handy dandy list, because obviously the transfer portal opened on December 4th, which was Monday, or 2 days ago. And Colorado has already seen quite a few guys leave. Like I said, they got Caleb Faria, the tight end, Marvin Ham, who's a linebacker that started at one point, but then obviously lost his spot. Caleb did not play much, if at all. They lost Gerard Christian Leichtenhan, the left tackle, the big guy. Van Wells, the center. Anthony Hankerson, the running back. Egan Carey, the linebacker, who went on the Jason Whitlock show yesterday, or 2 days ago now, and talked about how he was disappointed with how Coach Prime wasn't a mentor. And then they lost Mikey Harrison, the tight end, who former walk-on receiver turned tight end, kind of became one of Shedur's better targets, his safety blanket, if you will. It's one of those things where it's like, it's tough, because I liked what Mikey Harrison brought to the team. But clearly he thinks that he could have a bigger role elsewhere. He could play a position that he wants to elsewhere. And obviously Colorado's probably going to try to bring in other tight ends who could block. And I don't think he was the best blocker by any means. And so Colorado's had a few departures there. They had another departure in terms of coaching staff. They lost Darian Hagan, who, if you guys don't know, Colorado legend, was probably one of the best Colorado football players of all time. He was He was the quarterback of their national title team in 1990. Has coached running backs for 12 years at Colorado from 2006. Sorry, I got really itchy there. I don't know why. From 2016 to 2022, and then when Colorado hired Deion Sanders, he was the only assistant retained, but it wasn't as a coach. He moved into an ambassador role. But he wants to get back on the field, or wanted to. And now he's going to go, guess where? Drum roll, please. Going to San Diego State, where Sean Lewis is going to use him as his running backs coach. And I think it's a great opportunity for him. I think it's a great opportunity for San Diego State. Obviously, O'Boyle left Colorado as well, and will be going to San Diego State with Sean Lewis. And so at the end of the day, we look at what Colorado has lost now. And sorry, I'm going through the Twitter account so I could see. I wrote it all down. In the last month or so, they've lost Antoine Hill, the 4-star quarterback. I think that's the biggest loss out of anybody, just because I thought he was the perfect quarterback of the future for Colorado. They lost 4-star wide receiver Winston Watkins Jr. They lost 3-star running back Jamaris Wilder, 2025 running back. They lost 3-star quarterback Danny O'Neal, who actually just announced he's taking a 3-day visit from the 8th to the 10th to San Diego State to see Sean Lewis's new program. I imagine he's going to end up there. They lost 3-star offensive lineman Talon Chandler, who flipped to Missouri. They lost Sean Lewis, obviously, who went to San Diego State. Tim Brewster went to Charlotte. Defensive end coach Nick Williams, who went to Syracuse. And so it's kind of one of those things where Colorado lost a lot, and Coach Prime has a big couple weeks to see if they could gain some of it back. Obviously, early signing day is the 20th, and they don't want to lose any more people. They also would like to gain some people. And so I imagine more guys into the portal gives them more spots to bring in talent. And I think Coach Prime is going to do his best to fill his staff out. Now he also he went and promoted a defensive ends coach because obviously Nick Williams was a tough loss. They're promoted, or they did promoting Vincent Dancy. He was, and let me pull up his little bio here. Dancy was the head coach at Mississippi Valley State, where he posted a 10-38 record. He had funding issues, and he was kind of viewed as like one of the up and coming coaches there. And he will kind of be emerging. He's a young star, a lot of people say, in the coaching ranks, and so he now gets a chance to have a prominent position at a prominent program. And so shout out to him. So positions that they need filled: tight ends coach, offensive coordinator, and that is it. Because they replaced Nick Williams already. So they got 2 positions to fill. I will keep you guys updated. We're going to be diving into some transfer portal stuff as the week goes on because Colorado's shooting out those offers. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I appreciate you guys for tuning into Locked On Buffs and making me your first listen every single day. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great one.